they punch you in the face
They
with
do.
herbs and spices, and Colonel Sanders is over here.
Yep. 11 herbs and spices. Yep. Welcome once again to Chill Filtered, the podcast where we drink whiskey so you don't have to. But you probably should. You probably are. Hey, another reason we like you. Thanks for joining us today, guys. It is fun to be here. I got a very special guest. But before I get to this special guest, let's talk about some quick business that you can do to help us this week. Hit us up on Instagram and write some comments on our Instagram posts. I don't know. We love responding. We love liking. We love talking whiskey. We love talking our episode. We had a few recently that were talking about the Christmas episode and how fun it was to do the gifts and stuff like that. So shout out to Ben Klepsig for that, as well as I think a few others. But we love talking, and we love even just reaching out by message, or what do they call it? Direct message or whatever they do on Instagram. It's a great way to support us because we love talking whiskey. So like I said, that's the business for this week. But we're episode 339 now. We're closing in on 350 soon. And
Awesome.
I am very excited to have a very special guest today. And before I mention who he is, Bryan's just got a family emergency this week. So that's why I was a little bit, we were supposed to do the Chili's this week, which is our annual like year-end awards ceremony for the podcast. But we decided to push it back at least a week. But I have a Josh, not only a Josh, the Josh from Your Drinking Buddy. Check him out on his channel. He does way more views than we do, which is awesome. But I think we were even just talking before this. It's a great community to be a part of, and to be able to, even for me this week, to reach out to Josh and say, hey, do you want to be our guest host this week? And he was like, so down. So Josh, how you doing? What are you drinking? How's life? How's everything?
Doing pretty great. Had a great Christmas. Christmas was awesome. Went by too fast. Had to go back to work today, but doing pretty well. Thank you so much for having me. I think this just always looks so fun to see you guys doing this. So I think it'd be cool to be a part of it. So thank you.
No, that's the fun thing, is like, why stop when it's so fun?
And you chose me for a non-Scotch episode, so this is just a
win-win. And a good rye episode too.
That's true. It's true.
So I think I know at least one of your jobs is a bartender. Is that correct?
No. I started my channel mostly making cocktails for YouTube,
Nice.
and then when I would throw in a whiskey review, people would actually watch it. And I was drinking more whiskey at the time anyway, so I just started to do more whiskey reviews, and after a while, the cocktail videos just stopped.
That's funny. So what were some of your like original cocktail videos?
Just I did a lot of original stuff. I think one of
the
things I remember, I was watching YouTube one day and I saw a video for rum and Coke. Not joking. Nice. I saw a video for rum and Coke, and underneath the suggested videos were other people who had done rum and Coke videos.
They're like, I like to do 2.1 ounces. Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to make my own cocktails and throw them up on YouTube, because I think I make some pretty good ones. And
that's cool.
I just kind of, there's some other people who do a great job in that space too. In fact, better than I did. But I just wanted to do it for fun. And that was where my idea came. And I didn't think I could do the whiskey thing. And, after a few years of doing it, I think I really developed a palate. At the beginning, if you watch my early reviews, I'm like, yeah, this is it's vanilla and it's smooth, and but I grew into it. I definitely grew into it. So
hey, we love what you got now, and it's fun to see. I would like to think you usually do short format, but you do also long format stuff as well. I really like your shorts on YouTube. They're great.
Yeah, and I think it's nice to be able to consume those small reviews and not spend an exorbitant amount of time with a whiskey all the time. I like a long review, but a short review is kind of handy too, especially if you're standing in Total Wine and you're looking at a bottle and you're like, is this good? You can watch a 1-minute clip of me reviewing it and watch it real quick. And that's kind of what I was shooting for when I started doing those. And that when I started doing those, there wasn't a lot of YouTube Shorts creators. Everybody was on YouTube, but YouTube Shorts was new and not a lot of people were doing it. So
how long have you been doing this? I guess I didn't
a little over 4 years.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's sweet. Yeah, I guess what are we? We're closing in on 7 this year, which
Nice.
is insane. Like back in the day, like there was like the podcast and maybe Bourbon
Mhm.
Pursuit. And like, I mean, there was no Matt Porter. There was no
Urban Junkies are not that old either.
yeah, I want to say they were around then, but I don't think they made
Mm.
it. They were probably started around 6 or 7 years ago. I don't know though. But yeah, it's funny to feel like we're like somewhat the old guys, but never like the big guys. But I was even telling my wife recently how it's fun to be a part of the community of creators too. Like the community of whiskey is awesome, but it's
Yeah.
kind of cool to like know you and know like Matt Porter and know and, the bourbon junkies, they might not know us. I mean, they our name. We haven't really had like many conversations with them, but they know who we are, and especially through like Matt Madness and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I'm hoping
Yeah,
they're
I've
coming back.
one for me was like
Mhm.
Kurt from SLB. Like
Oh
he came
yeah.
when he came to Arizona, he came down and we toured Del Bach together and went to
Oh,
Nanas
that's so
together
cool.
and filmed a couple of videos. And he was just so down to earth. But to me, it was like literally like meeting a celebrity because he's so
Oh
big on
yeah.
YouTube. You know, it's like
Oh, for sure.
like
He's
a
got a
cool
big
experience. You know,
channel. Hmm.
so
That's cool. Yeah, one of my first experiences with another creator was actually you ever heard of Scott from My Bourbon Journey?
I know my bourbon journey, but I guess I
Mm.
didn't know his name. I've seen his
Yeah.
videos.
Mhm. Yeah, we randomly met each other at like actually you would be familiar. Baraboo, Wisconsin, Driftless Glen
Oh,
Distillery.
that's
Um,
awesome.
I met him there at a whiskey meetup one time and he was like filming most of the stuff and I'm like, "Hey," and we had just started Chill Filtered at that point, at least a few months in. And I got to meet him and we actually like he hosted an episode one time. Like it was the only episode that no original host was in. He basically like was
Hmm.
like the I don't know what you'd call it, like the crash host of one episode
Oh,
basically with
that's
his
awesome.
friends. So yeah. It was that's man, that goes back to like episode 51 or something like that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's
No, it's
awesome. I'm a big Driftless Glen fan, especially their Rise. They nail
so
Rise.
you should come out. We're highly considering a July meetup in Madison, where we're hopefully going to reach out to Driftless Glen and be like, hey, while we're there, we'll do a single barrel pick. So and a rye cast strength pick, if anything. So because
Yeah,
they do
that would be
such
awesome.
good ryes. Yeah, it's they do good stuff. I think that was actually no. It's funny when I met Scott at least one of our other listeners. Shout out to Caleb Olson. I don't think I actually tried Driftless Glen's stuff while I was there for the most part.
Oh,
No, I did, and it was good. But it was like such a small part of because it was a bottle share I went to, so
mm,
I was drinking like George T. Stagg and like Curly H. Taylor barrel strength and stuff like that. So it was like I was focused on other things, but it wasn't until one of our listeners, Caleb Olson, sent us a single barrel pick that I was like, holy crap, what are they doing over there in Baraboo? So yeah, it's cool. Um,
what are you entry buzzing on?
ooh, good cue, good cue. I'm going cast strength, not only cast strength, but hazmat. 13th Colony, a single barrel rye. This was one of their Colorado. This was like their inaugural Colorado barrel pick
Mm.
for um, a lot of the places that were first getting hit with 13th Colony in Colorado. 140.02 proof, just barely hazmat.
The
So,
only hazmat rye I've ever had is
uh-huh.
Jack Daniel's barrel proof rye.
Ooh,
Yeah,
what was the proof of that guy?
141 something,
Oh,
141
I would
something, and it
love
was
to
really
have
good.
one
It
of those.
drank really similar to a 135 I had. I did them side by side, and neither drank hotter than the other. Really.
That's actually interesting because sometimes Jack Daniels, whether it be the Tennessee or the rye, they can read so hot. Even if they're like a 130, they read like 145 sometimes. But then it goes the opposite way. Sometimes you have like a
Mhm.
140-ish that go reads a little less than that. And it's
I get that out of Old Forester bourbons,
mhm.
especially. They often drink much hotter for me than their proof. But
Like their single barrels and stuff like that, their
yeah.
barrel strength. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. I could see that. Hey, both Brown Foreman. Both actually, I forget. I think they're no, I don't think they're the same mash bill.
No.
Yeah, I'm thinking of
Woodford and Old
Woodford.
Forest Road.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Uh,
I'm entry buzzing on
yeah.
2023 Thomas H.
Mhm.
Handy, 124.9 proof.
I wanna say I've had that one, but I don't know if I have.
It might
Last
be my
year we
favorite
had
one I own. I don't know for sure, but
really?
it is really solid. I really like it.
So how many do you own?
I recently finished 2022, so it's gone.
Okay,
But I
nice.
have this
That was the
2023.
130.9er. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
yeah, but
I
go
have
on,
this
go on.
2023. I have this
Okay.
2014, and
Nice,
then I have a 2024 that I haven't cracked yet
nice.
because I was nice enough to be given a sample from Buffalo Trace. So I haven't had to open it yet, but I will soon.
Mhm. Yeah, been there. Yeah, we got so lucky, with 2 episodes ago where we got
For
2
sure.
samples just by pure happenstance. They sent us 2 samples because 1 cracked on the way, and then we happened to have the remaining 3 bottles opened of the 2024, so we were like, "How does this happen?" Like, it would be weird to come on and be like, "Hey, we have 4 of the 5 this year." I mean, it wouldn't be weird, it would be understandable,
Yeah,
but we got so lucky this year, and it was so fun.
I haven't had a
And
chance to taste the Eagle Rare 17 for last year, but I've had the rest, and
yeah.
yeah, I specifically always love the 3 cask strength offerings. Those
Mhm.
generally are my favorites. But this
Yeah.
year's Saz 18 was really special as well, like
Oh, it's
really
great.
special.
Yeah. Did Bryan share that one with you?
No, I had it at Nana's,
Nice. I
Nana's
gotta go
Kitchen.
there.
Shout out to Nana's Kitchen in Tucson,
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah, that's big. Isn't there another there's another big whiskey bar there, it's like
The big
the
one
whiskey bar.
downtown is called Batch.
That's what it is. Yep, mhm.
Yeah.
I've heard good things. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty decent with pricing too, and
Nice.
they do a lot of store picks too. So
Oh,
I don't
cool.
make it down there very often though because it's far from me. But
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah, Tucson seems not as big as Phoenix, but also pretty spread out in a good way. Um, so yeah, that's where you live is Tucson area, at least.
yes,
And yeah, a great place to be. Love me some Southwest. I tell my wife all the time, not all the time. I try not to bother her with this thought, but I really miss living in Phoenix. I really miss Arizona. Like it is my favorite place I've lived, and I've lived
oh, that's
in
awesome.
9 cities since high school, and Arizona's pretty awesome. So,
I'm a big fan of the Phoenix area too because
mhm,
it doesn't feel like you're in a giant metropolis, but you
totally.
are. And
Hmm.
you're I mean, it's one of the biggest cities in the country, and
Yeah, number
there's
5.
everything to do. There's
Mhm.
everything to do.
That's my
Any day of the
thing.
week, there's
Yeah.
live music. Any day of the week, there's
Mhm.
something cool going on.
Yeah.
There's tons of sports. I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm an Arizona sports fan, so
Mhm.
having those teams close by is pretty awesome. They're all
It
terrible, but
is. Yeah.
it's
They have
really
their
fun
moments.
to go watch them lose. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was my thing is like I lived in Gilbert, just, in the East Valley. And if I wanted, I don't know, like some random type of food, like, I don't know, like Peruvian food, I could find a place within easily 20 minutes, easily. If I wanted, uh, you know, uh, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like some random country. Like if I wanted like, I don't know, just other like
Zanzibar, yeah.
Norwegian food, I could probably find it in Phoenix, like it had so many good options. And yeah, each sub city like Gilbert or Mesa or Tempe or any of those, they all had their own downtown, their own
Mhm.
scene, which I loved about it. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe one day I'll live back there.
where the chill filtered meetups was at, with
Yeah,
where they did the barrel pick was right in downtown,
Chandler.
Chandler, and
Yep.
that's like
Mhm.
a cool little area. Downtown
It
Chandler's
is.
kinda
Yeah,
awesome. There's
it
like
is.
4 decent whiskey bars near there, and
Mhm.
I had some really good pizza just like a
Did you
block
go
away from
to
there.
Crust?
No, it was called, it had a ridiculous name.
The Ostrich?
No, All
Okay.
Ages Pizza, and it was in a
That's
coffee
funny.
shop, and it was sitting at a 5-star rating
Oh,
on
wow.
Google, and it
Nice.
was not like 10 responses. It was quite a few, and it was still sitting at
Dang.
5
That's
stars.
almost
It was pretty
impossible.
darn good.
That's sweet. I gotta check that out. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. Um, yeah. I'm trying to think. So, yeah, you're drinking what did you say? You were drinking the 2023?
3. Yep,
Have you
and
had the
it's
2020?
It's drinking. I don't have a 2020. No.
Oh. Go on, go
This
on.
one's drinking more herbal and more like black licorice forward than I remember tonight.
Oh, I'm into that. It depends. That's the thing about Handy is it's, like, kind of the most volatile, in terms of year to year because it's the youngest
I could
and
see that.
it's also cast strength, so it's, like, just always gonna be slightly different, but it's always, like the first time I had it, was in 2015, before the release of the 2015, BTAC. So I had the 2014 release, the one you got behind your shoulder. And I remember thinking, I had it actually right next to Saz 18. We were at a bar in Colorado Springs, me and my friend Trevor, and he bought the Handy and I bought the 18. And I remember thinking, this like Thomas H. Handy is a bus of rye. Like it's just like to your face, like especially compared to an 18-year, 90 proof Buffalo Trace rye. It was very different in comparison, but I still loved both of them. It was pretty cool.
They both have a
Um,
tendency to drink more bourbony to me than they do rye.
yes.
On
Yeah.
because I think the mash bill's probably just a hair over
That's what they
50.
say. Yeah.
So, you get there's a lot of corn in there, and
Mhm.
those 95 fives out of MGP just they punch you in the face
They
with
do.
herbs and spices, and Colonel
Mhm.
Sanders is over
Yep.
here.
11
Um,
herbs and spices. Yep. Is that what they
but
say?
yeah,
It's
and
11, right?
I think so.
Something
11,
like
yeah,
that, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, right in the face, and it's true because, yeah, this is softer, I mean, in a palate way,
yeah, palate way,
than
yeah.
that spiciness, but it's still so good.
Mhm.
But, no, that's great. So tell me, you have kids, right? And if you don't
Yes.
have to mention them if you don't want to, you don't have to use names or anything, but how did it go for Christmas with you with kids?
It went really well actually.
Uh,
They had a blast. My daughter, she's kind of at that age where she picked out basically everything she wanted and made a wish
nice.
list. And my
Uh-huh.
son, he specifically requested Pokemon cards and
Nice,
Legos, and he got a lot of both. But
nice.
what's funny is they picked out a present for me, which
Uh-huh.
was the newest Super Smash Brothers
Ooh,
for
I
the
didn't even know
Switch.
there's a new one.
Yeah, well, it's probably about a year or 2 old. I'm
Okay,
always
so yeah.
behind on games,
Uh-huh.
but, yeah, so anyway, it's funny because, that's the present they got for me, and they
Uh,
have not stopped playing it for 2 days.
that's great.
So,
Dude, I mean, well, okay. Let's we don't have to mention numbers, but what year did you graduate high school?
2003.
Okay, so you got me by 5 years or so. But like, dude, remember N64 Smash? Like
Yes.
that was a time, man. And like
Yeah, and
that was revolutionary. Yeah.
it's definitely scratching some of those retro itches because
Mhm.
some of the levels are the same. They have
Oh, nice.
some of the same characters and a lot of throwbacks to those old games for sure.
I love it.
So,
So when I was in college, I graduated high school in '08. But when I was in college, my friend group was like huge into Smash. But at that point, there were like two other versions out, I want to say. But we only played N64. Like we were just like, no, it is the purest. And it is the like in our minds, we were like, if we can conquer N64 Smash, then we're like, in a way, it's like the most pure way of winning. Like it was a weird way to think about it. But it was like, yeah, if we can beat each other on the base level, then we were truly one is better than the other person, as opposed to like different versions where I'm like, well, I'm really good at the GameCube one, or I'm really good at the Wii one. No, it's like, no, I am really good at the one that we can all be even at, or at least
who's
should
your
be even
character?
at.
Who did you always play as?
I was a Jigglypuff. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, not Jigglypuff. I was a
Kirby.
Kirby. Kirby,
Okay.
yeah. And
I'm a
mine was specifically
Pikachu.
yellow.
I'm a Pikachu player. I always play
Ooh,
Pikachu.
Pikachu's quick, man.
Mhm. Yep.
So, no, that's funny. So we let's get into our history pretty soon.
Yeah.
We're starting things up on well, I guess we haven't mentioned exactly what we're drinking today, but we are drinking an older vintage of Thomas H. Handy. We are drinking the 2019, so 5 years old vintage of Handy, which we both have the same bottle sample from because Brian Rapp is a baller and he's very good at sharing pours. But before we get into that, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back. And we're back. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming back after the break. Like I said, we're drinking the 2019 vintage of Thomas H. Handy, as it used to be known, and it's probably still known, Thomas H. Handy Sazerac Rye. Before I get into the history, I did want to put out a few thank yous, a few shout outs to all who took part in the Christmas festivities this year, whether sending gifts for the Christmas episode or joining in on our secret sampler. We had a blast. My secret sampler gifter was Ben friggin' Klepsig this year.
Nice.
What a baller. He sent 2 sets of whiskey pours, and I just finished the first, and the final show off pour was Octomore 15.1. What a baller. So we appreciate everyone that joined in. It's been fun. So and we'll be putting out some stuff soon for the delayed Chili's episode. So you'll be getting a survey soon, people who are interested in filling out surveys. So another shout out to Bryan Rapp, a baller, for providing both of our pours that we're drinking today. So
thanks, Bryan.
Yeah. All right. So we're talking Thomas H. Handy 2019, specifically a 125.7 proofer. Believe it or not, this is actually our 4th Thomas H. Handy episode we've done on the podcast. It's weird to think that, but it's also like we've done almost 350 episodes, so it adds up over time. Yeah. Our first on the podcast was the 2016 vintage. That was the episode 17, believe it or not, over 320 episodes ago. We did the 2018 vintage on episode 50. And then we did the 2020 release for episode 120. And I guess technically we just reviewed the 2024 antique collection in its entirety. So count that to episode 337. And we haven't done history for Handy in a long time. So let's get into some fun history of who Thomas H. Handy as a man, who he was. So before I get into history, actually, Josh, have you ever made a Sazerac cocktail?
Yes.
What's your recipe? Throw down.
So I would go 2 ounces of rye. Usually for mixing, I use Wild Turkey 101 rye. And then it's half ounce of simple, and then you rinse the glass with absinthe, but I generally will just add a few drops to the cocktail itself instead of rinsing the glass. I think you get the same effect and save a too. And then it's 2 dashes of Peychaud's bitters.
Okay, cool. My Sazerac is a little bit different. This is when I worked at a bar in Richmond. It was 1.5, because our standard pour was 1.5 ounce. So I did 1.5 ounces of usually Saz, actually baby Saz. But if not, I would back it up probably with Wild Turkey rye or maybe even knob rye.
Old Forester rye is another good mixer. 100 proof.
That's a really good point. Yeah, even the 100 proof rye. Yeah, that was a good point. But anyway, 1.5 ounce rye. I would do 1/2 to 1 or 3/4. No, I would do 1/2 ounce of simple syrup. Now that I think about it, and then I would do 7 dashes of Peychaud's, and then of course the lemon peel. Yeah, that was the guy that traded me was like, "No, just go hard," and it would be very licoricey and stuff like that. But it was a good one. And then of course chill it. But I would, these days when I make a Sazerac, I have a atomizer, a little sprayer, and I'll just spray the glass once with the absinthe. So it is a good cocktail. But here's the second question: have you ever had it with cognac?
I have. So I didn't like it as much, but when I was in my early cocktail days, I had to try it both ways and know which one I liked better. So, I actually don't. I don't think I've ever even bought a full bottle of cognac, but specifically to make that, I bought it just like a shooter.
I love it. So it depends on the cognac, or typically I'll use Armagnac, but I love Armagnac Sazerac cocktail.
I've never made it with Armagnac, and I do like Armagnac much more than cognac.
You got to try it because it was like blew my mind when I first tried. I was like, this is why they started this way. But anyway, so we take ourselves in this history back to the land of the mid 1800s. There was a coffee house slash cocktail place in New Orleans called the Merchant Exchange Coffee House down in Louisiana. They weren't just a coffee house that we're used to these days, getting some nice beans and coffee and all that stuff that people get at coffee shops. They also imported a few things, one of which was a specific cognac, actually. And this specific cognac they imported was started by a man named Bernard Sazerac de Forge. And I'm probably mispronouncing that because he was straight French. And he started this distillery in 1782. So at least like 60 plus years before they started this portion of time. We're going to the mid 1800s here. This cognac was perfect fit for some bitters that were made in New Orleans by a man named Antoine Amédée Pécaud. And they basically put it together, cognac, simple syrup, or at least sugar, and these bitters, and they called it the Sazerac cocktail for obvious reasons, because it was named after the cognac. And it had a sweet anisey, or anisey, however you want to pronounce it, taste and smell, almost like black licorice, perfectly complemented by the cognac. But we mentioned in the Sazerac cocktail episode, which was like oodles a long time ago. This was, I want to say, it was episode 78. We did an episode just on a cocktail, on a Sazerac cocktail. But there was a huge problem with grapes in the mid 1800s, and they called it the Great Wine Blight of the mid 1800s. And basically, it had to do with these little type things that were killing the French grapevines. And really cool story. If you ever want to hear a fun story about how America saved French wine, listen to episode 78, because the solution, I've mentioned this before. So the solution to the Great French Wine Blight was by grafting American wine, like vines onto French vines, and it provided a insecticide property to the French wine by grafting at least a portion of the whole vine was American. But then I found out too late, after the fact that I found out that America saved French wine, that America caused the French wine blight, because the invasive species that was killing all the French wine was an American species of insect or whatever that was killing it all. So it was a you cause the problem and you fix the problem kind of thing. So, but without cognac at the time in the mid 1800s, we couldn't make our favorite cocktail called the Sazerac, at least in New Orleans. And enter a guy named Thomas H. Handy, who now owns, at this portion of time, the Merchant Exchange Coffee House. But it's now called the Sazerac Coffee House. He is given the credit for making the Sazerac cocktail what it is today, a rye whiskey cocktail. Since rye is much more prevalent in the United States, especially at the time, and with a huge shortage of cognac, the rye Sazerac stuck. And that's who Thomas H. Handy is. Just a guy who owned a coffee house, and had a really good idea. Nothing much more than that. He wasn't a distiller. He wasn't anything much more than that. He just owned the coffee house. And the Sazerac Company, which kind of spurred on from that, one of the biggest and most successful liquor conglomerates in the world, started also with Thomas H. Handy in New Orleans. And they now own at least 9 distilleries, including Buffalo Trace, Barton, 1792, A. Smith Bowman, Glenmore, among others. Headquartered still technically in New Orleans. And let's talk real quick about Thomas H. Handy among the antique collection. The antique collection, I believe, started in at least 2000 or 2001. I'm pretty sure it was 2001. I don't know if you remember that one.
I know it's right around there.
Yeah, but Handy was introduced in 2006. Easily the youngest of the whole batch, and has been for many years. It is always cask strength. The highest proof was in 2007. It was a 134.8, and is only broken 130 proof once since 2012. And that was 2022, which you mentioned earlier, is a 130.9er. So it's usually not above 130, especially as the past 15 years. But ranged in age, especially from 2006 to 2012, between 6 year and an 8.5 year. These days, since 2013, it is just about 6 years old, sometimes up to 6.5. But it is assumed that this is the exact same mash bill as Baby Saz and Saz 18, at least the more recent Saz 18s, which is there is a rumor, like you mentioned earlier, that no one knows. I mean, few people know, but they're not telling anyone that it is assumed that it is a very low rye recipe rye. Usually they're assuming it's about 51% rye in the mash bill.
Similar to the mash bill of Wild Turkey Rye and Jim Beam Rye, which
I
are
didn't know
around
that.
51%.
That does make sense though, because yeah, it's very soft. Those ones are softer for ryes as opposed to, like you were saying, MGP 95.5s. If you ever wonder, what Baby Saz would taste like cask strength, just drink a Thomas H. Handy. If you got one on your shelf, drink it. But it's unlikely we all have them on our shelves. But it is always, like I said, uncut, unfiltered, non-chill filtered. Hey, that's not the name of the podcast.
It's close though.
Yeah, it's pretty close, pretty darn close. So Thomas H. Handy 2019, 125.7 proof. Buffalo Trace's rye mash bill, distilled in the spring of 2013. It is 6 years, 2 months aged. Here's the cool thing. Evaporation loss for this release was 26%, which is the least easily of the NT collection that year. The Saz 18 that year lost 83.5% of its liquid to evaporation in its 18 years, of course.
Well, how much of that do you think is the distillers going and checking on the barrel, and they stick a thief in, and over
question.
18 years, how many times did they taste it?
That's a good question. You got to think it's at least maybe
At least a
between
portion
5
of
and
it.
10%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, after 18 years, that's a lot of sips from that barrel because you just don't let it chill too long without trying it. But then every other release of the NT collection in 2019 was over 50% evaporation loss, except for Thomas H. Handy. Total wine price in 2019, the suggested retail was $99. But it's definitely much more on the secondary market, let alone B-Tax retails these days are in around 150. So that's what we got. Let's sip this. Let's review this. I'm excited.
I'm excited.
Yeah. And
I've
so
never had this one.
Yeah, you've never had this release. And to my knowledge, I haven't either. I know I've had 14, 16, 18, 20. And then I don't know after that. I've had something. I don't even know. Ooh, a nice dark color. Not as dark as my 13th colony, but it's definitely
it is pretty dark.
Yeah. Oh, gotta pour both glasses. Silly me. And then we'll be drinking it with a little ice, which is a little bit sacrilegious to most, but we always got to know. We always got to find out.
I don't know if I've ever had BTAC with ice, so it's an experience.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, this is the one to try it on, in my opinion.
It would wash out. I think it would wash out the flavors you got in the Saz 18.
I think especially. Oh yeah, especially something like Saz 18. Yeah. Ooh,
yeah.
great notes.
This is really like buttery and like rich on the nose.
Yeah. I'm getting that nice rye candy, like a hard candy kind of note. Very sweet, a rounded sweetness. That butteriness you mentioned it fits into that, with that candy note. It's like butter candy, almost like I wouldn't even call it caramel at all. It's like buttery yet slightly fruity and sweet.
Kind of apple. Like I normally get cherry off Buffalo Trace, but this is kind of appley.
Yeah,
It's a little bit more bright.
Yeah, I'm with you. Bright and I don't know if this is. Yeah, it's almost like a. I wouldn't call it a Granny Smith, but it's definitely a almost sourish apple. Usually, when I think of Granny Smith, I think of the weeded bourbons from Buffalo
Yeah,
Trace,
I
like
could see that.
Weller. But this isn't as Granny Smith as that, but it's still like a sour-ish apple. I love it though. Oh, that's a great nose.
Yeah,
This
really
reminds
nice
me
nose.
of a little bit of strawberry action, actually, strawberry candy action
I
on
could see that
the
those
nose.
old lady candies, the strawberry
100%.
candy and the
Mhm. Yeah. Ooh, that's good. This might be one of my favorite noses off of a Thomas H. Handy I've had because sometimes they're a little too potent. This one's great.
this year's. I think that was the main knock on this year's is the nose. The nose is fairly hot.
Actually, give me a second. Ah, I got this year's. I got a little bit left of my sample, so maybe I'll do a little comparison later. Um, oh, I guess in my rush to get the other handy, I didn't really take advantage of my palate.
Yeah, it's got some nice like black licorice thing going on
Hmm.
here. The fruitiness comes through on the palate too.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think you're right. It is more of a strawberry than an apple.
I dig this.
Yeah, that's really good.
Sometimes my problem with handy is that and this is truly like sometimes what happens is I put it on the same level as the rest of the antique collection. And I'm like, this should compete with George T. Stagger. This should compete with Eagle Rare, one of my favorite whiskeys of all time, the 17 year. And and I can't always say it does.
So
Um
you and I are on the opposite ends of that spectrum
really.
because that's
Hmm.
exactly how I feel about Eagle Rare 17.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can
Normally,
see
when I
that.
have it, I'm like, wow, why is this in here? It's not quite as good as the
Yeah.
other four whiskeys to me.
Yeah.
Uh, it's still great and it's an amazing
Hmm.
whiskey, but for me,
Oh,
it's
totally. Yeah.
usually the one that I would place last every year.
Yeah.
Usually,
Yeah. And that was the sad thing is that in my heart of hearts, I agree that it is usually a letdown. Although this year it was my favorite. But when comparing it, you're right. It's like I mean, especially like sometimes when it was like, actually, I preferred the 90 proof days than the 101 proof in general.
really,
Yeah, there was something about a good old 17-year 90 proofer to me from like I said, I had a 2015 bottle of but the first one I ever had was similar experience to the Says 18 and the Handy. I had a Eagle Rare 17 at that same place. And it just blew my mind, like absolutely blew my mind. And but that's why I love it so much because it was the first whiskey to ever really rock me. Um, and it's not always like even that wouldn't make my top 10 pours at all. Even that, like one of the best like experiences I had in my early whiskey days, it really wouldn't like tip the scales too far, but it like means something to me.
yeah, that's fair.
Um, but I agree, it's usually not keeping up with the rest of them. But then again, this year it really did to me. But Brian didn't agree. Like, I mean, I think Brian put it in third place for
Yeah,
his
you guys
antique
were
collection.
both a little bit down on this, and I believe it was the
We
same day
were.
I called it my whiskey of the year, the 2020.
That's funny. That's funny. No, let me
But it was all blinds. So hey, that's just how it shook out, you know?
Ooh.
I did
Well,
all
we
of that
weren't
on blinds and
blind.
it came out on top. So
That's the cool thing is that we I don't know how clean this thing is. No, I'm not gonna do it. I had a pour of that, or like a almost empty glass, of Octomore, and I'm
ooh,
like,
yeah, that might
no,
be
it's
here,
not
you know
gonna be
what?
a fair
I
shake.
got an extra Glen here. Use this one.
Oh, perfect. I'll grab that. But I'll finish one of these glasses, and hopefully it won't ruin the other pour of Handy.
All right, I better
Um,
put some water in this because this is not something I normally do. So let's try it
oh
out.
yeah. But this is all that to say, 2019 Handy is very impressive. Uh,
Ooh, definitely don't need that
maybe
much.
it's just that it's separated from the rest of the antique collection, but it is very good. All right, drop, drop. Drop, drop, drop. All right. Let's give it the old spin, Jay. Ooh. I kind of like that nose. It reminds me of a SAS 18 nose.
I will say that I do feel like the nose is slightly different.
Yeah. It's definitely opened it up in the way that people, think a few drops would, and not in a bad way. Sometimes water can really bring out the worst in a whiskey, whether on the nose or the palate. Mostly the palate, but the nose is really good on this with a few drops. Find out about that palate. Still good.
Yeah, not very different. You know what? A little bit more vanilla comes forward with the water.
Yeah, I
Then
can
it's
see
it's
that.
more vanilla than without the water. It was more like that anise type vibe.
I could see that. Yeah, it smoothed it
Kind of
out. I
melted
don't
off
know.
that note.
Do you prefer it
No,
to the? Yeah, I agree.
but
I
I
think.
probably that could be my internal bias, knowing that I wouldn't like it. So who
Yeah,
knows?
I think they're close. I do prefer the nose, but I
I
do
could
not
see that.
prefer the
Yeah,
palate.
I
Yeah.
think I could agree there. Actually, it was really
Hmm.
similar, but there was just something a little bit more. Maybe that's just
Hmm.
purely because it sat in the glass a little longer. I don't know. Maybe I swirled
Could
it a
be.
little more, but the water is doing something for sure. So
Hmm. I like it. This is what I hope Thomas H. Handy is every year. Like this is like
mhm.
potent, powerful, but also definitely a well balanced rye,
This
and that's
one's
this.
more of a rye than the last
Mhm,
couple years. I will say that this has got more of that herbal thing. It's got more of that black licorice thing. It's got a little bit more rye spice.
mhm. All right, I'm doing it just into a little bit, but giving it the old cube, dropping that cube action. Did you ever listen to that one episode where we're like, we found the infinite whiskey hack, where it's like you add ice and keep adding ice, and technically it's not whiskey anymore at a certain point, but you'll always have whiskey. Theoretically, there will always be whiskey the more you dilute something, theoretically, but eventually you'll
Yeah,
be.
I mean, I know a extremely popular way to drink whiskey back in the day, and this is
Yeah.
like the way a lot of people drank whiskey was they would take a glass and
Hmm.
you put like 2 ounces of whiskey in there and fill the rest up with water, and you drank that
Yeah.
like all day.
That's
Um,
crazy.
uh,
And it
I
makes
don't know. That
sense.
doesn't sound very good to me, but
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. It'll put the alcohol in you. That's for sure. If you
it
need
didn't really
that.
tame the nose for me. I don't notice a difference on nose. Well, maybe it did. Maybe there's less going on in the nose.
Yeah, I want to say it's a little muted. But I don't know. It's still there.
Maybe I might be picking up a little bit more oak on the nose than I did before. I feel
I can
like
agree with
water and
that.
ice to me bring out a little bit more oak on older stuff. I know
I could
this
see
isn't that
that.
old, but
Nah, but it'll do it.
hmm,
I mean, 6 years is not too crazy or too underwhelming, but compared to the next one up is like 12 years for
it's
the
true.
Yankee collection. So,
The temperature's a little bit of a trip to me because I never drink cold whiskey, but that's pretty
hmm
pleasant. I can definitely see why for the
it's good.
longest time when I got into bourbon about, I don't know, 6 to 10 years ago, into
Hmm.
whiskey, that I would almost always drink it with a little piece of ice in there.
Oh, really?
Um, but the
Yeah.
temperature is pleasant. Temperature is pleasant.
Yeah. It's like almost refreshing. It's my least favorite of the palate, but it's still
Mhm.
not bad. Um, it's my least favorite of the nose too, because
Yep.
it,
The nose is the weakest, and
yeah.
I think I would put it on par with the water on the palate and the finish for me.
Hmm.
I think they're pretty similar, to be honest.
I get a little bitter at the end.
Mm,
Um,
where
yeah.
that like the tannic oak thing is coming through a little bit more
Yep.
on the
100%.
water. I
Yeah.
mean on the
All right.
ice.
Let me do something real quick. Let me put down this ice and then. Hmm. Whew. Yeah. Yeah. We do it so you don't have to, listeners. If you find yourself a pour of the 2019 Thomas H. Handy, maybe don't add ice. It's not your
Yeah,
best.
I don't think it's a
Yeah.
good one way either. I
No.
was seeing if I still have mine, but I'm pretty sure I've finished it. But I
Your
have
2024
2019, so or
or
2014, so I'm gonna
2014?
put a
Yeah,
little
do
bit
it.
of that. Why not?
Yeah, we
I'm
got to
gonna do
know.
it.
All right, here's the 2024. Oh, do you want some of mine?
Yes,
Ooh.
please.
Ooh, definitely different.
I should have done the same thing as you. I don't know.
Done what?
I should have done the same thing as you. Oh
Uh-huh.
well.
No, 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 yeah. Ooh, it's very different. And that's what I'm saying. The volatility of a
Yeah.
lower aged cash strength product. Yeah.
Where on George T. Stagg, it's gonna always smell like George T. Stagg. It's always gonna
Yep.
taste like George T. Stagg. Pretty similar.
Mhm.
The one year where it was off by a little bit, they're like, we can't even release this.
Yeah. Which I still am a conspiracy theorist about. Double George Very Stag to come out soon.
I mean, there's also a real chance that they're often accused of. I'm not saying they do it, but they're accused of artificially inflating the
Yeah.
scarcity of their products. Well, a
Mhm.
great way to do that is to be like, this whiskey is so good. This year's version isn't even good enough. We're not releasing it.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's my thing. It's like we've all had a bad BTAC, or at least those who have been in the business long enough are like, really? Was it really that bad that you couldn't release it in 2021?
Yeah, I
Man,
don't know. I
that was
mean,
like
the
3
honestly,
years
the
ago.
honest truth is, if they were artificially scarce at, doing those things that people accuse them of, they're doing it wrong because they almost never raise their prices. So
Yeah.
if you're doing that, you should be doubling your price every year.
Yeah, you would think. And then the funny thing is like, yeah, like you said, like they're not artificially doing it, but then the secondary value is like, yeah, it's just they're not taking advantage of that. But it's probably
It,
good. I respect that for
yeah,
sure.
I really appreciate it because it's, like companies like Willet that I really enjoy, their high end stuff, they've completely priced me out. I can't pay $450
Totally.
for an 11-year cask strength whiskey. It's great. It's
Yeah.
at $300, I would buy it, but it's 450. I just
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. All right, Josh, I got some interesting thoughts for you. I do not like 2024's handy. Like, yeah. But like that's the thing. And that's not like a, you know how this goes. This isn't like a
Mhm.
shot at your skills or anything like that. It's funny how listeners, viewers, everyone's different.
Yep.
And that's what's awesome about whiskey. Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
so I'm comparing the
2014.
2014 to the 2019, and I think I like the 2014 slightly more.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
but I think it's just scratching the itch of what I want right now, where it's got a little bit
Hmm.
more cherry. It's a little bit more bourbony
Hmm.
than it is rye. And
Totally.
right now, it's just kind of scratching the itch of what I want after having a few ryes back to back to back.
Yeah.
So
I don't like that 2024, man. It is
that's whiskey of the year right there.
yeah. Yeah, that's shame to me. um it is well, here's the thing. What do you like? Do you like it when things are notably oaky?
I love oak. I
Yeah.
love
Mm.
a bourbon that is like, some people would take it and they'd be like, "That's over oak." I'm gonna be like, "Please more." Um,
Yeah. No,
I
that's the opposite. I'm like very sensitive to oak and I'm like,
I
"Oh, I think
love
it's
oak.
too much." And
Beaver.
then
I'm a
so that's
beaver.
probably the difference here.
Yeah.
Which is like it's funny because like yeah, you give it bourbon of the year, I mean whiskey of the year, and I'm like it's too oaky, and that's the fun of all these whiskey creators and stuff is like yeah, we all have our preferences, and the funny thing is most of our listeners know this by now. Typically, I favor the Buffalo Trace profile.
Yeah.
Um,
Me too.
and
Same.
people know that now when they listen to me review Eagle Rare 17 being like incredible this year. It's like, no, it's very much the cherries and apples Buffalo Trace profile that I love and dearly. And they probably know have some sort of bias towards Eagle Rare 17. And so I hope some of our listeners and viewers can realize that no one's perfect in reviewing either. Like no one has the perfectly objective palate to say like everyone will believe what I not believe everyone will trust what I have to say about this whiskey. It's like no, everyone's different. I mean that's
You
like the
know,
thing about like Jim Murray and all that stuff is like dude, first of all, I do slightly believe Jim Murray was bought out to some extent.
There's
Yeah.
another popular one that I won't mention a name
Uh-huh.
of that kind of seems like he might have favoritism towards
Yeah.
certain distilleries that might help him out from time to
Yeah.
time. I won't mention
Yeah.
any names.
No, I was
But
drinking. I won't mention what I was drinking actually, but I was drinking something that was reviewed very highly by Jim Murray today, and I was like, I could see why Jim Murray would say this, but I'm not going to mention what it was. But
I have a funny thought because
Mhm.
when I named that whiskey of the year, I'm pretty sure it
Yeah,
was that video where I had a comment from a guy who's left like over 50 comments. Like when I look at my,
yeah,
my algorithms, whatever on
yeah.
the
Hmm.
studio, he's a top commenter.
Uh
Anyway,
huh.
he left a comment that said, "Well, this just shows it. We have two different flavor profiles. I'm unsubscribing. Have a good one." That was
Jerk.
over naming the Handy the whiskey of the year, and I was just like, "Well, teach your
Yeah,
own."
sorry to see you go. Yeah. Hmm.
It's but it was kind of
I
funny that that's what set him off. So I thought maybe it might be you, just under a different name, or
No, not
I'm
today.
just kidding.
No, yeah. It's funny though, like, you get probably much more comments than we do, but, like, some comments you're like, "I get it, but did you have to say it?" Like, I get that we're different, I get that you
Dude,
don't
we should play
agree.
around with shorts because you
Uh-huh.
invade people's feeds who don't even like whiskey. So
Oh.
so it gets wild in shorts, and I
Oh,
really have
wow.
fun answering those comments when I get something off the wall. But in regular format videos, I don't get
Yeah.
them very often. But on shorts, I get like mean, hateful, rude comments all the time, and they're great. I love them. They
That's
crack me up because
funny.
I love answering them in a
Yeah.
like sarcastic manner.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
somebody will be like, "Oh, well, you just all whiskey tastes terrible, and it's all the same, and you're lying, and you're making up tasting notes." And I'll just
Like,
like drop like, "There's no way you could be tasting banana on that." And I'm like, "Well, actually, it's isomalt acetate, and it occurs naturally in the
ah,
whiskey," and those types of things where I just really like to love to nerd out on the comments and just
totally. I would if I were doing shorts and stuff and I would get in that kind of stuff, that kind of action from like non-whiskey people, I'd be like, well, your mom, like stuff like that. Just letting it loose. Yeah. And trying to
I
lead them
like to
into a
say thank
D's
you for
nuts
your
joke or
feedback. In
something.
the future, I will do this.
Yeah,
Oh, you
yeah,
hate whiskey. Okay, well, thank you for your feedback. In the future, I will review water instead or
yeah.
something.
Yeah. That would be, yeah. It's funny though, like I don't sometimes I can see through people's motives with commenting. Or maybe not their motives, but like yeah, sometimes their motives. Like I see you're trying to like get a rise out of me or something like that. And or at least a rise out of other commenters or something like that. And yeah, I'm like, like and I try to handle it in like a yeah, one time we had Sentinel from Del Bach and I compared the batch 2 to batch 1 and not on the episode, but later on another episode, after talking to Mark Viertaler, Mark told us that batch 2 was a much younger year of rye. And I kind of caught that in the episode prior to finding out. I was like, this tastes a lot younger. And some dude was like, shout out if you're listening now or viewing now, but whatever. But some dude basically was like, "Oh, so you're telling me you drank like a dusty year-old open bottle of batch 1 and compared it to this year's bottle of batch 2 and said they're completely different?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I don't
Yeah,
know what I
I
said, but
mean,
I was like, "Thanks for watching." Like something like that. Yeah.
it
Um
doesn't change as much in the bottle as people say,
It
too. I
really
don't think,
doesn't.
at least.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
mean,
think.
if it's like if it I wanna say if it's like an inch or 2 at the bottom and it's been a year,
Yep,
maybe there's been an
yep.
impact of
Then you're
oxidation.
probably looking at being over oxidized at that point.
Exactly. Mhm. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, man. Can't make them all happy. I gotta get a tougher skin sometimes because, like, the funny thing is I will get impacted by certain rude comments, but then I'm like, "Dude, they're trying to get a rise out of at least
Mhm.
me, maybe someone else, but I'm not gonna fall for it. Like, I'm not gonna be like, "You suck, man," or
Yeah,
something like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
If you do that, there's really probably just going to,
Yeah.
reply and keep yeah. But if you're
Yeah.
nice and say something kind of funny, they're
Mhm.
likely to probably subscribe and stick around.
I
So,
have a friend, this is another tangent, who he's probably got like 4 million subscribers on YouTube.
oh,
He's got a great channel. It's an educational channel. Actually, I'll shout him out now. If you ever heard of the whiskey channel, or the not the whiskey channel, the YouTube channel called Tier Zoo.
mm-mm.
He does animal educational videos, but all with the lens of gaming. So he'll like do tier lists like they do with like Super Smash Brothers, for example, but he'll do it with the animal kingdom. And he'll be like,
Mm,
what are the best bears? And he'll like list out a tier list of bears. And he'll like straight up like research the crap out of everything and
that's
be like,
awesome.
this is why the polar bear's stealth is so high. This is why the grizzly bear's intelligence is this, what, whatever. And he'll like break it down pretty nicely.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
What is it that thing they say about bears? If it's a black bear, you run. If it's a brown bear, you play dead. And if it's a polar bear, you just pray to God because you're
Yeah,
dead
you
already.
die, you throw
You're
your
dead
child
already.
in front of him, yeah. That's a terrible joke. Um, but what was I oh, man, I had a great point of why I brought him up. Um, he he has a lot of subscribers.
He probably gets a
Oh,
lot of
man.
hateful comments all
Oh,
kinds
no,
of
yeah, that was it. One time, he was doing a video on, foxes, and someone was like, you are a doofus and foxes aren't canines, they're lupines. And so he came and he said some like really rude thing, saying like, the fact that you want to sound smart or something like that, like he like put out this thing like, you want to sound smart but you're not. And then he came back and like wrote a comment, like commented on his comment and said, actually, the word you're looking for is vulpine, which is the word for fox, because vulpines are canines, but they're not lupines. Absolutely not lupines. And like basically, and then like kind of like used his words against him, like you want to sound smart, and he's like, you want to sound smart, but you're a jerk. And like
them.
he made, I don't know if you've heard of Reddit's Murdered by Words subreddit.
Oh,
But
that's
it like
awesome.
made Murdered by Words like, and actually trended like on the front page of Reddit, and it brought his channel from like 300,000 to like 600,000 in a day
Oh,
because he
that's
like
awesome.
handled it so well, but also like destroyed this guy at the same time. And that's what I was thinking of. Is like sometimes it's like it's nice to like lay them out, especially when they're flat wrong. But
Yeah,
then you also got to be a little bit diplomatic about things sometimes. So,
that's
but
true.
all right, let's review or let's rate this thing. Maybe 1 to 10 or a scale or something like that. I'm gonna do both. This is like a 9.2 for me. I think this is great. One of my favorite handies uh, thus far. I also give it an A, straight A. Yeah,
Yeah, so I'm definitely A territory. I
yeah.
generally rate things buy or pass. It's
Uh huh.
obviously a buy for me.
Oh, for sure.
Um, and I would say, yeah, 9.2, 9.3, right in that range.
Yeah.
Hard for me to say because I don't normally rate whiskeys that way, but I think that's pretty
Hmm.
close to what I would say for sure.
Yeah. And for those who, know us long enough, it's like my scale is so weird. It's not linear at all. Like I basically avoid anything above 9.7 because I'm like, I want to save that for the best of the best that I still haven't experienced yet. But also like a 7.8 is a terrible whiskey to me. So it's like a
Yeah.
weird scale. Yeah, but no, that's great. All right. Now that we've reviewed and rated our beautiful Thomas H. Handies, let's go over to our next segment of the show, a segment that we like to call Whiskey World News.
All right, we are back with Whiskey World News. Today we are looking at the article titled The Top Whiskeys and Bourbons of 2024, according to this Spirits writer. It's from Forbes magazine and it's by Katie Kelly Bell. And there's some interesting choices on here, I will say that. She starts the list off with Sir Davies whiskey, which, as you guys know, is the Beyonce whiskey.
Number
Um,
top whiskeys of the year, baby.
yeah, and you know what? I thought it was called Sir Horsey, but I guess it's called Sir
Uh-huh.
Horsey.
No, that's
Um,
Blanton's.
yeah, well, it is a very pretty bottle. I will
It
start by
is.
saying that it's a
Yeah.
very pretty bottle. I have not tried it, so I can't trash it. But
Yeah.
next up, Johnny Walker Blue Label Ice Chalet, $250 bottle of blended Scotch. Um, okay. Next up, we have Stranahan's Mountain High Angel Share 10-year. And just for fun, I poured that one here. I have not tried this yet, but I had a
Nice.
sample. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about that one a little bit. Then it is Virginia Distillery Company Cabernet Cask Reserve Single Malt. Which, by the way, hurrah to American single malt becoming an official
Yeah.
category.
Yeah, like
So
this like past week or so.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go, Whiskey World News right there. Pretty cool.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
is true.
So
Yeah.
they will be able to have a little bit more control on that category.
Mhm.
Additives won't be things that'll be added,
Yep.
at least ideally, things
Yeah.
like that. So then next up, we have 15 stars, Three Kings, aged 11 years. And I have not heard of this one. Have you heard of this one, Cole?
No, but it sounds really interesting.
It does. It's got it's a blend of heritage grains, baby black, red, white, and blue heritage corns. Range of different mash bills aged in different stocks, blended
From 11
flavorful.
to 15 years. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds kind of interesting. I would kind of
It
like to try
does.
that.
It really
179
does.
bucks for that guy. Next up, Traveler whiskey.
Ooh,
And
credibility destroyed.
yeah, it's not a bad whiskey, but it's not a
No.
good whiskey either.
Yeah, that's my thought. Yeah.
And for $40, I feel like you could buy a bottle of Wild Turkey 101 and a
Yeah.
bottle of Jim Beam 7
Yeah.
for about the same price, and you're
Yeah.
gonna have a much better experience with both of those whiskeys.
Mhm. I agree.
Um, Wyoming Whiskey National Park Series number 4. I have not had this one. It was an $80
Yeah.
bottle from them. And that's the last one
Mm.
on the list. So what do you think of that list there, Cole?
I think it all really comes down to 2 whiskeys. And don't get me wrong, I haven't had Beyonce's Sir Davis or whatever. Um, maybe it's great.
It's just
I
MVP
actually
rye. Young
yeah,
MVP rye.
yeah, I mean, it might be good. I mean, it says, yeah, the mash bill is 51% rye, 41% malted barley. It might be great.
Yeah.
It might be amazing. But it's also like sensational. Same with the Traveler. It's
Yep.
like
2
sensational.
celebrity
And
whiskeys on your list is kind of
yeah, and it's like throwing like Johnny Walker on there. And like, don't get me wrong, Johnny Walker is actually it's not terrible. I wouldn't even call it bad. Johnny Walker is not bad. It's just
Johnny Walker
like
Red Label. I can't quite imagine a worse whiskey for me than Johnny
oh
Walker Red,
really?
like the
Oh yeah,
base
but you're also not
Johnny
like a
Walker.
big,
I, I don't
yeah.
I don't hate Scotch as a category. I just
Mm,
prefer American single
totally.
malt Irish whiskeys and maybe even Japanese to most Scotch.
Yeah.
Personally,
No,
that's my
yeah,
favorite
Japanese
profile.
never hurts, man. That's the
Yeah.
craziest thing. But like, I don't know. Like these are just some random like someone commented recently and I appreciated their comment. They were talking about another best of the year article that we read. I forget who it was. It was like Rob Report or something like that or like Forbes or something like that. And this is Forbes, so who knows. But they didn't even mention like Russell's 15. And it's like, really, you're gonna say the best of the year? And like we've all tried Russell's 15. We haven't all,
It's a best
but a
of the
lot
year.
of us have tried Russell's 15, and that was phenomenal. And it didn't even
Yeah.
make the top 10 list for that guy.
I would
And it's
say I
like,
had
God.
one celebrity whiskey this year that I
Mhm.
think was really
What
exceptional,
was
and
it?
that was the Whiskey Gypsy. It's an Eric Church whiskey, and it's
Okay.
a $200 bottle of whiskey, but
Dang.
it was really good, and it's a blend of old Tennessee,
Okay.
Canadian rye,
Okay.
and older uh, Indian single malt.
Ooh.
Um,
Wow.
So 3 different,
Yeah.
countries, and
Whole
that's a
different
really good
realms.
whiskey. That's a really
Really?
good whiskey.
I'm into that. And like, don't get me wrong, certain celebrity whiskeys can be surprising to me.
It was
I
cask strength
recently
too on that one.
oh really? That
Yeah.
sounds amazing. I got to try the Smashing Pumpkins Few release
Mm.
and was not blown away, but was somewhat blown away by how not bad it was. Because people know I love the Smashing Pumpkins, but I was like, dude, this is gonna be terrible because it was like cut with infused water, which is legal, um, but apparently legal.
Was
But it
it
was cut
pumpkin
with tea
flavored?
water. What's that?
Was it pumpkin flavored water?
No, that would have been
They
very
messed
interesting,
up. They
actually.
messed up.
Yeah, you done blew it, Billy Corgan. But no, it was like tea water they used to cut the bourbon with, and they
Ah,
still
okay.
called it a bourbon. Um, but it was actually I wouldn't call it bad at all, but I wouldn't call it great. So it was like somewhere in the middle of like this is actually good. Um, but like if you put going back to the article, it's like if you put Traveler whiskey on this, it's like this is just like how many here's like don't get me wrong. I'm not calling uh Katie Kelly Bell a liar. I'm just saying, how many whiskeys have you tried this year, Katie
Yeah.
Kelly Bell, who covers the latest in wine, spirits, food, and travel? How many whiskeys have you had this year?
I mean, I
Uh,
guess it kind of it just shows to me
yeah,
that maybe she's somebody new to the category. She's lower
maybe.
proof. Like everything was pretty low proof on the list. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
I'm looking through
this
her. Yeah.
this
She's got a
Stranahan's
lot of
is
wines.
this is pretty darn good, but this is not better than any of the major releases I've had from Whiskey Del Bach this year. This is not better than any of the
Yeah.
major releases I had from Balcones this year. Um,
Mhm.
it's very good, but I don't think it's as good as some of the other American single malts I've had this year. Personally,
Yeah.
it is very good though. Oh, thanks, Tommy.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. No, I'm sure she's I'm looking through her articles up until like up to July, and she mostly
It's pretty good though. It's pretty good.
reviews like the last whiskey. I don't even know if she reviewed this one, but one was a 34-year-old Ardbeg, so it doesn't even seem like
Oh,
she reviewed it, to be honest. But like I'm looking through her articles on Forbes, and up until like 6 months ago, there was only one other article on whiskey, and it
yeah.
was the 34-year-old Ardbeg, which I don't think they even gave her a sample to try because there's no review that I can see out of this.
I would
So
drink
it's
that.
like,
I would drink that all
oh,
day.
that would be
Sign me
whiskey
up
of
for
the
that.
year. Dude, the Abyss from Ardbeg. My goodness. Ardbeg is probably my favorite Scotch distillery. So a 34-year probably wouldn't let me down. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, I don't know if I
Um,
have a favorite Scotch distillery.
dude. Well, do you have any like top ones?
I just for I got to be honest. For the Scotch category, it's more
Mm,
like this is pretty good. I,
yeah.
I don't I like I've never had a Scotch that I was like I have to own this. This is amazing.
Yeah.
This is life altering. Where I have
Hmm.
had that experience with Irish. So like
Hmm.
for me, they're not always single malts. They're the uh,
Single pot stills.
single pot still.
Yeah.
But those, some of the stuff coming from Middleton, the Red
Oh,
Breast, the Spot series, the older Jameson stuff is just really
yeah.
exceptional. And then for me, Stranahan's Whiskey Del Bach and Balcones, I would take
Hmm.
over like any Scotch I've ever had off my
Dude.
personal palate.
Whiskey Del Box still just perplexes me with how well they do with less than 2 years aging.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
and it proved me wrong that small barrels are bad
yeah.
because they nail it. They just destroy the expectations of small barrels.
The other one that I
And
think does really well with small barrels is
mhm.
still Austin.
Oh, really? Okay. I need
Yeah.
to we have a good few samples of Still Austin. I need to give them some tastes. Actually, shout out to the Whiskey Shaman,
Yeah,
another creator on Whiskey Tube. That
great
he
guy.
shared at least a few samples of his Still Austin pours that he's got, and we still haven't sipped that yet. So we got to do that with him soon. So,
If you're watching this on YouTube and you need something
mhm.
to watch, him and
Oh
I
yeah,
and Doc from Old Fashioned Ways, and then
Nice.
Tom from the Bourbon Jerk. We did a Best of Texas tournament,
Oh, nice.
and it was pretty fun. We each sent each other our four favorites from Texas
Nice.
and did a blind tournament. And we all came up with completely different results because palates are different. But it was a really fun experience. I do have a like a playlist with all of those videos. And
Oh, that's
it was
great.
fun.
Yeah. So wait, you all brought in 4 of your top favorite?
Yeah, and then so we each had the same 16
Whoa.
whiskeys, and
16. That's awesome.
we did a mix up queue that my wife did so that we would be
Mhm.
drinking the same four in each video.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
wouldn't know what they
Mhm.
are. So it was pretty fun.
That's pretty cool. I love that. No, yeah, check that out. I wanna watch that now. Yeah, because like, Texas whiskey is, it is usually very good, but it's also, like, some people can get behind it and be like, "Oh, it's terrible," and, over like, the heat shows up too much in this whiskey and stuff like that, so that's kinda cool to see, a blind of 16 different whiskeys and stuff like that, so were there any overlaps?
Yeah, we
Yeah, I
did.
believe it.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
somewhere that they really did well for us. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
One distillery did really well for all four of us. So I will
Oh,
say that.
cool. Oh, I gotta check it out now. No, that's great. Alright. So now that we've talked about whiskey world news, any other thoughts before we move on to the next thought on the article?
No,
No, no, it's
no.
all good. This whiskey or what whiskey would you choose this time? We're not going to go over prior results. We're going to save that for the next episode. But Josh and I were talking, and sometimes we reuse what whiskey would you choose questions, but this one we're just going to keep simple. We just drank an amazing rye, and what is maybe even lately or best of all time or lately? What is your favorite rye whiskey? And I got to think about this one, but I'm sure you do too. But do you have anything on your mind for favorite
Thomas
rye
Handy is
whiskey?
definitely up there. If I'm
Nice.
looking for something a little bit easier to come by, the Jack Daniel's Barrel Proof Ryes are
Oh, I have
probably
so
right
many of
up
those at
there.
home.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think I have about like 9 or 10 different ones right now,
Yeah.
because they're just so good and they're so affordable, and
Yeah.
they almost break the mold of like whiskey hunting, where you're like, why do I
Yeah.
hunt whiskey when this rye is better than most ryes that I can buy? So
Dude, I totally get that. I mean, so I save some people know this, but I save certain bottles for my daughters when they turn 21. And for my youngest, I have a full case of barrel proof ryes from Jack Daniels, but they're all different they're all different batches, barrels rather, and but they range from like 31 to like 137 and stuff like that, and
that's pretty
I think
cool.
that's gonna be kind of cool. Yeah, but that's the thing is like it's so good. I'm gonna say similar to your answer, but also different. Different is I'm gonna go Saz 18, baby. Like that,
Mhm,
dude.
mhm.
It's like especially recent ones. This year Saz 18, last year Saz 18. I'll just go with 2024 because that was amazing. I love a subtle, syrupy, sugary rye that has obvious age, but obvious hard candy notes. But it also doesn't blow your face off. Like this 13th Colony rye that I was drinking for my or my entry buzz. Um, it's delicious, but I love over young. This isn't young; it's 8 years, but over like middle aged to young and high proof. I'd prefer lower proof, higher age, and that says 18 for me. It's like a 90
Okay.
proof extra age rye. I'd
You
prefer
know,
that
I
typically.
I feel hard pressed if we didn't shout out some of the nice stuff coming out of the craft world
Hmm.
for ryes too.
Oh,
I
totally.
think that New Riff, Driftless
Yeah,
Glen,
Driftless Glen. Yeah, heck
Hard
yeah,
Truth,
yeah.
Sagamore, it's still
Hmm.
Austin as well. Man, there are some great
Yeah,
ryes coming out of
nice.
the craft world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Trying to think. There's gotta be at
Craft
least
bourbon can be hit or miss, but craft ryes, man, there's some great craft ryes
dude,
out there.
as evidenced by Driftless Glen alone, like it's
Yep.
like their bourbons can be great, but their ryes are always killer.
Yep.
Yeah, they're incredible. So you went up there recently.
I did.
What brought you up there? Family or something?
So we're going to eventually hit every state as a family, and
Oh, that's so
so
fun.
we were crossing off Minnesota and Wisconsin, and I
Oh,
was
that's
allowed to do
killer.
one whiskey thing, so I chose Driftless Glen.
Nice. So where are you at personally on the states? Have you hit them all?
No. I
Nice.
don't know my exact number because we usually
Uh-huh.
go off of the number we've done as a family,
Yeah, yeah,
and
that's
I
cool.
actually don't know that off the top of my head.
Ooh, that's cool. So I'm very
Um,
proud to say this. I have 46 states under my belt.
I
But that
think
was
we talked about this.
because
You got to make sure
uh-huh.
you hit. Is it North Dakota or South Dakota?
Uh-huh.
It's one of those two. Wants you to hit it last if you haven't already been there,
Okay.
and you get a plaque and everything. If
Oh,
you,
I'm totally gonna if it's North Dakota, that's one of my
I
4
think
states
it's
that I
North
haven't hit.
Dakota. You got to go there
Yeah.
last.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's
Plaque. I mean, like a
Michigan,
piece
Vermont,
of paper.
Alaska,
Sorry,
North
you
Dakota.
get a certificate from them anyway.
I'm down. No, that's great because the funny thing about North Dakota is it's not really on the way to something. Same with Vermont, same with Alaska, same with Michigan. It's never
Yeah,
really on the way to something. So you can't really drive through it to get somewhere else
yeah.
for the
Like South
most part.
Dakota has the touristy stuff, but North
Yeah,
Dakota doesn't.
exactly. And like if you're trying to get from I don't know, like Minnesota to Montana or like Wyoming, you're not probably going to drive through North Dakota unless you're going from
There's
the
probably
north
a
part
more
of
direct
Michigan or
route.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, that's and the funny thing is because the reason I've been to so many states is because my parents also kind of had a similar mindset to you of like, hey, let's just take these road trips everywhere. And so that's kind of cool.
for
Yeah.
sure.
All right. So we want to hear you, a listener, viewer, Instagram follower. We want to hear what your favorite rye is lately or of all time. We want to hear it. So we'll put that on Instagram soon so you can vote and put in your what whiskey would you choose vote for this week. So and see, yeah, we can do me versus Josh. What's better, Saz 18 or Thomas H Handy? Actually that would be a really interesting thought because there is a split. Like some people are like, no, much rather have a higher proof lower age than a lower proof higher age. So we'll see
Well,
how it goes.
considering the secondary market is like triple for
For Saz 18.
first as 18.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. But take the price out of it, listener.
Yeah,
Nah,
true,
don't do that. Do
true.
whatever you want. Um, but Josh, thank you so much for joining us. It is dope because I feel like I am the person that's like, please, Josh, please join us. But you were so willing. And we appreciate yeah, you just being such a good friend and helper in the creator world. So thanks for
Thank you for
and
that.
us.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you having me on.
Dude, we'll have you on anytime you want to come on. And it's fun to be a part of like kind of a conversation because I know this isn't your standard format is kind of what we do, or is like a lot of
I
talking, a
like
lot
to
of
go with the
digressions.
punches. I'm a roll with it type of guy. We could
Oh, that's
do
dope.
any format I'm in.
Hey, we'll take you. No, that's dope. And I here's the funny thing. I know Bryan is gonna be jealous that we had you on, but not him be a part. So maybe one day when I have to take an episode out, maybe he'll reach out to you and we'll have a Bryan and Josh episode as well. So
I like it.
um, I hope that does happen. I hope that one day there's a Bryan and Josh, and maybe there'll even be a Bryan, Josh, and Cole episode in the future. But yeah. But I also hope that people get their hands on some 2019 Thomas H Handy up in here.
I hope that if you can't find 2019, maybe at least you can find the 2024 because Cole hates
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Find out what Cole doesn't like in the antique collection. But most of all, listeners, I hope that our love of whiskey lifted your spirits. Ooh, Pikachu's quick, man.
Mhm.